Hi YouTube, my name is Diane, and I have been so encouraged watching everybody else's YouTube videos regarding cross stitching that I thought I would throw my hoop into the ring, so to speak. I live in the United States in flyover country, and I have been cross stitching for probably 20, well, definitely over 20 years. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a main hobby of mine, and I've done a lot of projects through the years. So I thought I would do some of the stitching tags that I saw on a variety of videos. And the first one is how long you've been stitching. Well, it's been over 20 years. I started, when I was growing up, I did some small little things. But when I was in college, one of my roommates was stitching a Marbeck angel. And it was really, really pretty. So I went to the store, Pat Mac and Dave's, or Pomida, as we call it around here. And they had a small cross-stitching section with basic, very basic materials. And so I picked up a Precious Moments little pattern and some Aida and some floss and stuff. And that's where I got started. And I'm glad I started that way because Precious Moments patterns are very straightforward, basic, but it really helped me to get the motion of cross-stitching and just get used to this, reading a pattern and how do you put this together and that together. Then I went to a cross-stitch store and I said I wanted a challenge, which if you've gone into any kind of craft store and say, I want a challenge, whether it's quilting or cross-stitching, they're going to give you a challenge. And she gave me linen. I had never stitched on linen. I really didn't know a lot about it. And I love stitching on linen. That's what I stitch on probably 90–95% of the time. I said I would throw my hoop into the ring, but I do not use a hoop. Or I should say I rarely use a hoop. I stitch in the hand, and the stitchy anthropologist, she also stitches in the hand. I have just found it very easy for myself, and I think it's easier to transport and just work on most projects. There are some exceptions for using a hoop or not using a hoop for me. If I have a first sampler that I'm going to be working on for one of my children that has silk ribbon embroidery, and it also has hardhanger and a section of stitching. So on the silk ribbon embroidery and on the hardhanger, I will use, I bought a simple frame. I've never done that, so that's going to be a little bit of a challenge for me. But my favorite designer by far is Marilyn Levitt Emblem of Lavender and Lace. And I was sad to hear that she passed away last year, but I have done many of her patterns, and I love her patterns. The flowing skirts and the depth of color that she uses are just stunning. And you probably can see in the background here is one of her designs, and I'll do that in another video. A second favorite designer is Nora Corbett of Mirabilia, and I'm working on more of her patterns. They're very detailed and they're very large, so they do take a while. But I do enjoy them. They're beautiful. She definitely is a great artist. I also like Just Nan. I like her patterns. I like the way she incorporates specialty stitching and metallics and beads, but she doesn't overdo it. She has a great balance in her designs, and I really appreciate that. Probably my fourth favorite would be Stony Creek Magazine and their patterns. I have stitched a number of their patterns through the years, and I like all four of these designers. The charts are very clear. That is a deal breaker with me. I have looked at other charts, and they're hard to read. And it's almost, if I would try to stitch them, I would get a headache because the symbols just would drive my eyes nuts. But I really appreciate designers who put out great directions and a nice chart to follow. So those are the ones that I really enjoy. How many have I stitched? Honestly, I can't answer that question. If I said 100, I think that might be low. I've stitched a whole variety of things through the years and given a number of the objects away. And I really encourage, if you're just starting homeschooling, excuse me, I also homeschool. That's why I threw that out there. But if you're starting cross-stitching, I strongly encourage you to get just a simple little notebook or journal and just write in it that, okay, I started this pattern, I'm using these fibers if you have specialty fibers, maybe special beads. What is your fabric? Is it 32 count, 28 count? What color is it? Maybe where you purchased the items. And when you finish the project, and if you give the project away, because I have forgotten who I have given what to through the years, it'd be really nice to have a notebook that I could just look and say, oh yeah, I remember giving so-and-so this project. Trust me, you will really look back on it years from now and be glad that you wrote it down. And your family will appreciate it too, having something in your own handwriting, but then they could also, if they know what piece you stitched, you may even say, I love the blues in this pattern, or I love covered bridges or angels, or whatever the subject matter is. I wish I would have done that when I started. And I also quilt. And so what I'm trying to do is when I quilt something, I try and write the name of the pattern, the designer, anything special about the quilt, size, any special fabrics or stitching. And I really wish I would have done that with my cross stitch all those years ago. It'd be just fun to look back and say, oh yeah, I did that project. And if you want, just have one page where you write, and then on the back of that page, just slap on a picture. It doesn't have to be professional or anything, because especially if you make any changes. I often change the fabric that a pattern is stitched on. Especially with lavender and lace and Mirabilia, I often do not like the linen that they have chosen to stitch the model on, so I'll choose something else. And if you make that kind of change, or if you personalize it somehow, I've done that on a number of projects too, especially for birth announcements. I will take a project that's not a birth announcement and I will adapt it. And when I've done that, it would be nice to have some notation, how I did it, what resources. So I encourage you to do that. It doesn't take much. But it can also be really nice for yourself when you need kind of a shot in the arm, so to speak, to keep stitching, to look back and say, oh, I enjoyed that project, or I enjoyed that one. It'll give you a motivation. That's just my 2 cents. The tools. Someone posted a tag about your favorite tools. Well, I have it's really 6 tools that I love to use. And my number 1 tool are these project bags. They're the vinyl mesh project bags. Oops. I love these. These were great. They're not waterproof. You wouldn't want to throw it in a swimming pool and hope that everything stayed dry. But they are water resistant. I've had this on our dining table or something, and something gets spilled, and I can quickly pull it up, wipe off all the outside of the bag, and the items inside are safe. So it is water resistant. They come in a variety of sizes, and this one is the largest one here. And this one is the next largest one. I like them because they can fit a pattern of this size, roughly 8.5 by 11, into the bag very easily. You don't have to bend it weird or anything. You can throw the pattern, the fabric, any tools that you may need, and I really like them. I also like that they come in different sizes, as I have a small one somewhere. Oh, here it is. And in this pouch, I have all of the beads and some specialty fibers for one of my patterns I'm working on. And I will stick this one into this bag. And that way, if this bag is open and it tips over, I don't have bead packages flying everywhere. And I have a large family, I have young children. Let's just remove that temptation from them. So that's my tool number one. My favorite tool number two, oh, and they're very affordable too. And I've had this one, I would say could be up to 10 years old. And it's not getting that yellowy, plasticky color or smell. It's not getting brittle, and you can flex this. You can bend them so they're easy to travel with. I really, really like them. One of my daughters works in a retail environment, and at the end of the shift, part of the protocol is to go through their bags. Apparently they've had issues with shoplifting and stuff, but they just glance through the bag to make sure there's nothing in there that shouldn't be. She had a little makeup bag, but they always had to open it to see what was inside. So she asked me if I would get something about this size for her to use. And so she has one of these in her purse, and she throws in her lip gloss and mascara and a compact mirror type of thing. Well, they can just pick it up, see what's inside, another lovely feature of these, and she's done. I also, on this one, there's a loop on them, so I have put a carbiner on here, so when I'm not stitching on this project, I have wire shelves in my closet, and I can just clip it on a shelf, and it doesn't get buried or lost. That's my tool number one. My tool number two is my box. I wrap my bobbins. I've done that since the beginning. That's what I thought you were supposed to do. And I've looked at other storage systems, but I have so many already wrapped, and this works great for me. I'm not going to change it. I have big ones like this for storing. This is my DMC box number 3. So I know I put mine in order, numerical order. So box number 1 starts at white, and then I think 151 is the first number I have in there. And I just know if I'm looking for a specific number, if I know it's in the 3000s, I probably could start looking in this box. It's my own notes to myself. Those big boxes are easy to find around here, but this little one is hard to find. I don't know why. Some of the organizers that are in the bead section of the craft store are not deep enough to have the bobbins in here comfortably. They would lay awkward, and that would bug me. I also like this particular box by Teresa has this long section here that I can throw other things in here. I actually have floss in here for 2 different projects. These 2 columns for one, and this 1 column for another, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. But I really like it. I like it latches, so I know it's closed. And I had one of these for probably 10, 12 years. I dropped it and it broke. I thought, oh, I should go to the store and just find one. I could not find one. I looked at Michael's. I looked at Joann's. We do not have a Hobby Lobby in our area, unfortunately. I looked everywhere I could look. I could find the big ones, but I could not find this size. I even looked online at a couple of the cross-stitching stores that I have ordered from in the past. They didn't have anything. So I was in a different craft store, and I happened upon one, so I grabbed it up. Of course, a couple weeks later, same thing happened, and I had to go back to that store and buy another box. But this box here is probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years old. I love it. It's so easy for me. I like my bobbins in numerical order, and it just works so well. So this is my tool number 2 that I love. Tool number 3 is a good pair of scissors. And these I got at my, I got at my cross-stitch store. They were very affordable, and I love that they have a scissor guard on them. That way when I'm reaching into my box, I don't have to worry about being poked. And these work, these are the perfect size for my box. They're lightweight. I also have a daughter who is left-handed, so if she would ever need to use these scissors, it's not an issue, because you can use them right or left-handed. I am very right-handed. I had bought a pair of these that were a little bit bigger. They were green. They didn't fit in my box as well, so when I went back to my cross-stitch store and I saw a smaller pair, I bought that. This was $3 or $4, and this fits in my box perfectly. The green pair that I purchased before, I threw that into my sewing machine in the compartment that comes off of your sewing machine to allow you to do different techniques, and it works great in there for little snippets. I quilt, and I really don't want to take my big dressmaker Ginger scissors when I need to snip a little thread. So the pair that's a little bit bigger than that works fabulous for those just little loose threads that you always get when you sew. So having a good pair of scissors is great, and I have gone through scissors through the years. Usually when they end up in the wash, I don't know how they get there, but somehow I've had some migrate to my washing machine. Then I designate those. With this blue pair, I will not cut metallics with them. Metallic fibers can leave little burrs in your eye of your needle that you can't see, and they can actually damage floss you put in there after you use metallics. So I have needles that are designated for metallics, and I have scissors designated for metallics. So these blue scissors, unless they end up in the wash, will last me a long time. My 4th item is Thread Heaven. I know somebody on one video said they didn't really like Thread Heaven, and I've only been using it probably 4 or 5 years, and I love Thread Heaven. Because I wind my floss, when I condition my thread with Thread Heaven and smooth it out, it helps the thread relax, and some of the bends you get from the winding of the bobbins disappears. And if there's any wonky little fuzziness or something on my floss, this works fabulous, and I really, really like this. One box can last, well, I go through probably a little over a box a year. Now that I plan on stitching more, I'll probably go through it more often, but it's very reasonably priced and lasts a long, long time. So that's my tool number 4. My tool number 5 is actually 2 different items. I like projects that have beads involved in them, and so I purchased it's a little acrylic test tube looking item. It has an end here, and I have a label on it. I think you can read the label. But on here, I have beading needles. So I used to have to figure out my packaging and name, and did I put any notes on it, if it's an actual beading needle. But using this little tube, I can put my beading needles in here, and I really like the short beading needles. I know exactly what this is, and this fits into my box in that long section really, really well. So I love this little tube. I got it from my cross-stitch store. It's under $1. And the other item I like when I bead is called a tacky bob. It looks like a little cassette, or CD case. You open it up, and on both sides there's a tackiness, and so you open your beads, you put a little bit of beads. When I bead, I usually have to use 2 or 3 colors at the same time, so I can put one color bead here and one color bead down over here or on this side, and I can do my beading, and then if I need to stop for a while and come back to it, I can close this up and the beads will stay. Because of that tackiness, they're not going to roll all over in here. They're going to stay where you put them in single layer. And that really impressed me when I started using this. Because at first I wasn't quite sure, but then I could just take my threaded beading needle, pick up a bead, and go. And these beads aren't going to move on me. On the back is one of those craft foam type of material. So when you have it sitting down, it's not going to slide across your desk and disappear. I have spilled beads. I have flung beads across the room. So anything that can help me bead, and I learned a long time ago, I bead after my kids are in bed. I can stitch when they're there. I can use metallics when they're around, but no beading. No beading. Maybe when they're older. So those are my favorite stitching tools, and I use them a lot. Another tag was the 3 random facts about yourself. One is flyover country. What do I mean by flyover country? In the U.S., you often hear of the horrible snowstorm on the East Coast or the horrible weather over on the West Coast. But they tend to forget that the United States is huge. And there's a whole lot of ground in the middle of the country. So they fly from LA to New York and back. They kind of forget there's a lot of land in between, and that's what we refer to as flyover country. I grew up in Rapid City, South Dakota. I moved out of state to go to college, met my husband, and we don't live in South Dakota right now. But that's what I mean by flyover country. Another fact is my husband and I have been blessed with 13 children, and our oldest is 22, and our youngest is 8 months. So when I say I have a large family and little hands, I mean it. So anything that people put out that can help me stay organized and yet remove temptation from my littles, it is great for me. And I started stitching before our oldest was born, so I guess 23, 24 years were coming upon regarding cross stitching. Another random fact, I have my YouTube channel is mondot stitches. When I was 2 or 3, we lived on a ranch, and we had this dog. He was a stray dog. He just kind of showed up, and or maybe my grandmother brought him to us. But that dog, he was a mutt, but we called him Dud. Well, I couldn't say, "Come on, Dud," to have him follow me around the yard, which the dog did. He was very protective. He often got in front of me when I wanted to go one way and he knew that wasn't safe. He got in front of me and kept me from going that way. But I could not say Dud, so I said mondot. And eventually the dog did not answer to Dud. He just answered to mondot. And he was a very good dog. He protected us and kept us safe, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, he was a good dog. So that's why I chose mondot stitches. It's just, I thought it would be unique, and it's something personal to me. Watching the videos, many of you kept talking about, in my rotation. And it took me a while to figure out what you guys were talking about. But the idea of working on one project for a week, and then the next week on a different project, and the next week on a different project. I often start a large project, and I would get bored with it, put it away for a while, and then I'd bring it out eventually and finish it. The rotation is something I'm going to start working on, and I think that will keep me motivated to keep stitching, keep me from getting bored, but also I'll get finishes done. So I've chosen 4 projects in my rotation, and the first one is Mirabilia Red. I love this pattern with the Red Riding Hood. She's just stunning. And quite frankly, the picture does not do it justice. And I did mention that with Mirabilia I often change the linen, but this time when I was at the cross stitch store I pulled what was used on their model and I threw some threads on it and I really liked the color. So this is an exception, but it's done on 32 count French lace linen, and this is as far as I have completed. There are a lot of wrinkles in it right now because I stitch in the hand, and so I tend to roll up until I get to the area I'm stitching in. So I do not have, there's beadwork in this project, but I've not started the beadwork yet. I like to finish all of the cross stitch, back stitching, specialty stitches, although this does not have any of those. I will put metallics in here, but again, this project does not have metallics in it. It does have 2 silks, and I love working with the Karen water lilies. That fiber is beautiful, and that's through her gown here is where those specialty fibers are used. Before I start the beading, I will iron this. I'll press it from the back with the press cloth, and then I'll start the beading. But that's as far as I am for that. That's my project number 1. My project number 2, here it is Mirabilia, another Mirabilia, a Persephone. Oops, sorry, a glare. I'm new to this video thing, so please bear with me. And this has, again, some water lilies in it. Try not to get a glare. In the background, behind her head. So behind the girl, those kind of like wallpaper looking design, that is where the special fibers are. And this one is, I don't remember what the pattern calls for Persephone, but I did change it. I didn't like what they had used. This one is on a 32 count Lugana. It's vintage antique field. It has a hand-dyed look to the fabric. I don't think it's hand-dyed, but it does have a look to it. And I've only got about that much, her knee and a section toward her left. So I have a long way on this one, but this is my project number 2 in my rotation. And these are the beads for Persephone. So that's why I have those in there. Number 3 is a Just Nan design, and it is Cherish. I have completed most of Just Nan's angels, and this is the last one I'm aware that she's produced. But maybe there's another one I've missed. But I really like her angels. They're small, they're easy to complete, but I love the way that she incorporates special stitches into her designs. They add a lot of dimension to these particular angels. I also like that she does petite, I think it's petite point, where she goes over one thread. You have that option for the face and the hands if you want to, and I will do that because I've done that on the other angels. And this is as far, I found this in my stash, so this is as far as I have worked on this particular one. So that's my week number 3. And when I'm completed with that one, I've already chosen that I'm going to do the Just Nan Legacy sampler. I really like this one. So that's what I'm going to do when that Just Nan is complete. And number 4 is Teresa Wentzler. And I've had these carousel horses for years. I think this is even out of print. This is winter. Trying not to get a glare on the camera. This is the winter one. And this has a lot of quarter stitches, a lot of panique. I don't think there are any beads in this one, but this is going to be number 4. When red is done, I'm going to tackle the blackwork stitch along that I've seen a number of you show, and that's very beautiful. I've done some blackwork designs, and I look forward to doing that one too. But I suppose I should wrap up this video. Thank you for watching, and probably my next video will, I'm not sure, I'll probably focus on, I've made birth announcements for most of my children except my youngest, and I might show those. I don't know. But I look forward to seeing all your videos, and I've learned things, and I'm glad we have this community available to us. So thank you for watching.